You know, the word mentor actually came from the Greeks. And I don't know if my dear friend Giannis is on with us today, but he would tell you everything good came from the Greeks. It's set in Homer's Odyssey. And when Odysseus left to fight in the Trojan War, he entrusted his son education to a friend named Mentor. In the Chinese culture, my Mandarin is not good, so I'm not going to use the word, but mentors are responsible for instilling knowledge, skills, and acting as lifelong guides. Across cultures and organizations, these relationships are powerful. Traditionally, we've looked at mentoring as the older leader, the sage on the stage, nurturing and growing the young protege for both career and psychosocial development. So today we're going to turn it up a little bit and think about a different concept of mentor. And while I'm thinking about that, I think about the powerful relationships that I've had in my life as well. And I wanted to share with you a little story. For those of you that are on the Henley, who have completed the Henley program, or are currently part of the Henley program, this was taken on my very first day of starting the Henley program. It was a new pair of boots taken out in the beautiful gardens that surround Henley. And I ended up there because of a conversation that I had with a mentor, someone that was relatively new in my life, but supported me. And I was at one of those defining moments in my life where I was switching careers or trying to decide what to do next as I set some goals. And this person actually said to me, bold steps will define you. So here is me and my boots. And for those of you that know me well, I use the concept of bold steps in the design of the work that I do and how I either mentor or advise and encourage others to set some goals and to take bold steps in their life. So this is where it started, and hats off to Henley. I hope I get back there the fall sometime soon to maybe take even another picture. Let's think about mentoring just from a little bit of an academic lens at a moment. You can see it's a really good organizational development practice, and it's highly viewed by employees. This is some research out of MIT in 2015. And if we look at the data, we'll see that mentoring is certainly highly regarded by emerging leaders, by young leaders. But we also see in terms of, they see it as important in their developmental practice, but they also see other types of support and pressures and influence and training and opportunities that are equally important to their development, that aren't solely tied to that one relationship. Human resources or talent development or performance systems such as this are really powerful in creating engagement in your organization and really promoting those stars, the coaching that Paul talked about earlier this morning. How are we really using these systems wisely to grow not just our employees, but ultimately our organizations? The positive relationship between these development practices, particularly mentoring, really impacts employee attitudes and behaviors. In contrast to that, though, we need to be cautious about the types of relationships that we build. And of course, the survey findings show that some of the best sources of developmental support were personal friends, managers and supervisors, business associates, informal mentors, and life and spouse partners. It's not just that one person anymore. And if we really want to grow our organizations, we have to grow beyond that model of the one traditional mentor as the be all and end all to the type of work that we do. Drawing on some research again, we can see that we count on mentors for personal advice, personal guide, our inner circles and our outer circles, the networks that we have. It's a balance sometimes between the psychosocial or emotional or life support and the career support. And as I was listening to Paul speak this morning, I hope we see the difference between the coaching, the workplace coach, and the full service or the mentoring relationships that we have. I think these are side by side. I think that we need to be able to actively engage with the mentor or mentors, along with the specific skill and competency development that Paul was referencing in order to create the alignment of the goals and actions to get the results. That's what stood out to me this morning, Paul. So thinking about that, moving beyond that one person that you thought of this morning or that you were writing about that time as I was going through my technical glitches. Let's expand that thinking a little bit. And over the course of a week or even a month, who do you contact? Who do you count on? And who's been really important to help you do some different things, either personally or professionally, to make your world grow? I know some of mine are on the webinar with me today. I have Paul, who he and I get to do some cool work together, but we bounce a lot of ideas off of one another. He's kind of my career and goal guide. I also have Lena, who's with us today. And Lena and I have a co-relationship that we built some cool things together. But Lena's my go-to for social media and a strategist in terms of thinking and how I'm positioning myself and putting myself out there. I see others with us today that I hope I act in a mentoring role for, whether it's a walk around the lake in the morning as we dissect some ideas together and about making a difference. Or maybe it's my best friend who may be here today as well, who is really that life coach, that personal guide for me. They are my personal board of advisors. Who's on yours? So when we think about them, and Paul, I don't have the, maybe the master of the craft, the work coach. I would certainly include those as someone that I would want in my advisory board. A lot of the research, and I've encapsulated the more academic stuff, for want of a better word, into something that's a little bit more easier to process or think about. Who's your champion? Who is there for you in the workplace? A lot of work talks about mentorship and sponsorship. Who is the person that is making sure you're getting ahead and moving forward? The master of the craft, the Pauls of your world. How would working with someone like Paul on your advisory board really help you move forward? Or maybe you're looking at an iconic figure in the area, your personal Jedi master, someone who's accumulated wisdom through the years of experience and insights into your industry and will really help you fine-tune your skills. They're the person you go to for advice about your next initiative or where you should work next. They should help you identify your strengths and help you grow towards the closest state of that goal idealization or self-actualization that you're looking for. Mentor 2, your champion. This is someone, or your sponsor is another word that we see in the literature. This is someone who's going to talk you up to others. And it's important to have one of those on your personal board of advisors. They advocate for you, and they're the ones that have your back, even when you're not there. Not only are they boosters and sponsors, but they're connectors too. They're able to see things in you that maybe you don't see in yourself, and are able to effectively and strategically help you design your network or opportunities and experiences to help your personal and professional career goals. What about your co-pilot, your colleague, or your work buddy? They're your best work bud. And as we reflect on what we've all been through over the past 3 or 4 months with COVID, they're probably the persons on your frequent call list, your FaceTime calls versus your Zoom calls. They're the ones that safely and in an environment of trust help you co-navigate the relationships at work, the work that you're doing together, the thinking about the personalities and the power relationships. You know, they're the ones that you probably have the frustration chats with, gently and trustworthy, of course, but making sure that these are, they know your work environment well. They're really able to co-navigate with you through some of the challenges, and of course, work together to encapsulate on both of your strengths. The person with the pink nails, the anchor, the confidant, and the sounding board. They may be in your workplace, but they may be outside your workplace as well. And I know I count on my close network of friends to be these people for me. Again, they're not afraid to call you out. They're not afraid to tell you that you're wrong. But they're the ones that have known you well and are really helping you guide your choices in your work based on the values, based on their knowledge of you, both personally and professionally. They're the ones that probably help keep you aligned with your values and make sure that you don't steer down the wrong path. They probably aren't even in your industry, but they are probably someone that you have a strong trust relationship with, and that you're probably acting the same for them. We're all going to hit speed bumps or air pockets when I'm allowed to fly again. And these are the people that will allow us to navigate those bumps, those challenges, to really move forward and take the bold steps that we need.
Susan, just so you know, the great feedback on this slide here, everyone it's really resonating. And this notion of an advisory board, how powerful and important it is really connecting.
So when we think of those, and when we think of, thank you, and when we think of those 5 that are there, I'm going to leave reverse mentor because I want to get into that a little bit later in our conversation today. Yep. When we think about the other 4, do you have those? Can you put names to them? And if you can, write down those names, not necessarily in our chat, but think about them and how you need to thank them. I've thanked Paul publicly today because, you know,
thank you very
we're
much.
good there. And if you don't have those, if there's one missing, maybe that's something you can think about. Maybe that's an opportunity for you to reset or revise your thinking about, maybe this is a relationship that I need to build to really personally and professionally grow. You know, these people may move on. There's an ebb and a flow to many relationships in our life, but if we're able to clearly name them and thank them and count on them, something tells me that these are lasting relationships that you have, even though there may be opportunities where you don't see them for quite a while. Here's one very famous relationship. My sister, I don't know if she's with us today, but she calls herself the consigliere of the family. So if you haven't seen The Godfather, Jane is the one that we call on to kind of, okay, what do you think about this? So she will sit back, the person of the wisdom, and give us her consigliere view of the choices or decisions that we're going to make. But Jane, and many of you on the call that I know well, aren't hesitant to call back. Mentorship is truly a two-way street. It's a relationship between people and not transactional. As people advise you, you advise them. There's a reciprocal relationship within a strong mentoring relationship that is of such high value. And one of my colleagues, or in some recent work that I've been doing with an organization, they wanted more of a traditional mentoring program. And so I took a little bit of liberty. And when I was designing that, we spent a lot of time thinking about the importance of fit. And fit meaning values, and fit meaning the things that you see as important in your life, or the way that we both see the work going together. Not an anti-mentor, but someone that is going to be there and support you. And as I think about that, and as I say it out loud, how do we know what conversational tools, what sort of psychometrics or assessments or reality checks, or even a list of values and goals are we creating that help us determine that importance of fit? That's something I really think needs to be part of a solid mentoring system or an advisory board within your organization, if this is something that you're trying to design on a bigger scale. For you as an individual, think about that. Are you clearly able to talk about your values with someone that you're developing this trust relationship with? Are you clearly able to talk about your strengths and your weaknesses and the things that drive you nuts and the things that you love? And have you some common conversation elements that will help drive that conversation? If we think of Michael Bungay Steiner's work on coaching and the coaching habit, and so many other, again, I would go to my guru Paul for this, so many other fabulous coaching conversations. When we ask the question, what's on your mind and how can I help? Have we really developed that strong self-awareness that's going to be able to help us clearly articulate why we want to build this relationship and how we're going to make it valuable to both of us, how we are going to fit together? It's not just about you. And often when we are working with young MBA students, and at the moment everyone feels young to me, but if we're working with younger students, or we're seeing young MBAs or young ambitious teachers or young emerging leaders come into our organizations, many of them say, will you be my mentor? Are we able to, they're reaching out to the senior staff. They're reaching out to others to mentor them without really grasping the concept of what mentoring looks like and the reciprocal nature, the interdependence of that relationship. They need to be willing to lift themselves up. If you want to lift yourself up, lift someone else up. Again, it's that reciprocity that we want to build into what we do. I've talked a lot about self-awareness and a strong sense of your personal and professional goals. Change in the workplace, moving forward, thinking about what we're facing, a new job, a new global position, a new country may require some change or refocus in your work. If, for example, and I'll draw my own experience here, if that's okay, and I invite you to share yours, and we'll take some time to talk about that. I'll think about when I first went to the UAE to do work. I really had to partner and find someone that would be my guide, my confidant, my sage on the stage, my master, all of these people that would help me navigate this brave new world that I was facing. I knew what I was getting into in terms of the work, but when we think about all the other things that define work, the people, the culture, the conversations, the difference in values, what can that look like, and how was I going to be best prepared to meet that goal? So that meant kind of surrounding myself and finding and seeking some strategic advisors that would help me with this. So I drew on new friends, new experiences, new acquaintances from my work at Rotman. And I cautiously and consciously built new relationships with people in the UAE I was developing a trust relationship with that would help me navigate those new networks and thinking there. And I now count them as friends and trusted advisors in my life. What about you? What new thing has caused you to seek out a new relationship that may be of value?
If you want to go ahead and chat into the chat box, we'll keep an eye on what new things have triggered you seeking out positive mentors. Maybe there's a related question, which is, we're in COVID,
Mm-hmm.
a period of, and this is for the audience, a period of uncertainty. How have you tried to figure out what to do with your kids? How have you tried to figure out what to do at work? That process and who you connected with is a good starting point for who you think your mentors are. Encouragement's key during career transitions. You need to find different mentors. So inflection points, clear, tangible inflection points seems to be when individuals seek mentors, at least from the audience's responses here.
Thank you. And built into that is, again, as I'm watching you respond, it's that strong sense of self-awareness. And as you talk about, Paul, that goal, that reflection, that action, what is it I need to do? And how am I going to do this better? Do I need a coach? Probably yes. But what other sorts of advice and wisdom do I need to have to make this happen? So let's take a step up and think about your organization. How are you creating a culture of mentoring across your organization? How do you capitalize on the leaders, on the leadership to promote learning, engagement, build that informal and formal networking, enhance the self-confidence, and create a sense of belonging? Because you know something? If we don't do that, people will leave. Unless we're truly creating that culture of collaboration, the ability to capitalize in a good way on relationships, the ability to draw on each other's knowledge and experiences with the end goal of personal and professional performance, which ultimately impacts our organization. How do we do this? What does your performance management system look like? What does your talent development system look like? How are we aligning and designing conversations within our workplace? Do we value cross-departmental collaboration? Do we place value on outside relationships and networks? For new people when they come in, how are we supporting them? What does it look like? And how do they know that we value these types of relationships in the organization where we are? Unless, as organizational leaders, we establish that personal and professional space for people to grow, we're going to have trouble. We're not going to have the level of engagement that we require, the level of diversity and vision and action that we require, because the trust is not there. If we don't start building trust relationships with our employees and helping them create opportunities to have trusting conversations, powerful conversations within and across leadership, our organizations aren't going to be ready for the next steps that we need to take. What did that look like over the past couple of months? How did the trust that you've established or the trusting relationships within your organization, how did they make your organization grow and work? Or how have they also made you reflect on what you may need to do differently? So, what does it look like? We've talked about, and I know our time is getting close, Paul.
Yes, we have about 5 minutes, and hopefully you have some time for some Q&A.
So we talked, well, the strategies for success. I want you to think. We talked a lot about you individually. What can you do? What one thing would need to be true to make this happen effectively in your organization? Or if it is happening effectively, pull into our chat here or take some time after in our Q&A to share with us a fabulous strategy for success that you're using in your organization to grow others and thus to grow yourself as a leader. I want to spend a little bit of time thinking about what else we can do. I think, and I know this is my own bias, when I started to talk about mentoring and think about mentoring, it wasn't about a power relationship, but it was about a one-on-one, a professor, a coworker, a leader, someone who was probably a little bit higher than me or had a different skill set than me, but they were all very like me. I thought about the superstars that I've mentored myself, Paul, as you do in your coaching work that you do. When we hire someone, we commit to them that you are part of this organization, that we want you to be here. Of course, the superstars, I would say, are going to take care of themselves. If they're not getting what they want, if they're not getting the competency and skill and social development that they want in your organization, they will leave. But who do we tend to forget? Who do we forget to include? And who most needs our support? To truly future-proof our organization, I think about what Jebby asked this morning. Do they value the customers more than the people? To truly future-proof our organization, what mentoring, advising relationships do we truly need to concentrate on? And what biases do we need to address? I'm going to give you a call to action. I told you at the beginning that we were going to park reverse mentoring until now. When we think about reverse mentoring and when we look at what it says in the literature, it really focuses on more of a multi-generational lens. It looks at a young upstart, my son, for example, a young engineer who can use Excel the same way that he can make Kraft dinner. And so, you know, we would partner him perhaps with an older senior engineer who may not have the same skill set, so that they're learning from each other in a reverse, mutually beneficial relationship. So the older and the younger. I challenge you. Let's change up. And I don't even want to use the word reverse. So if you can think of a better way to say this, I'd love it. What do we need to really increase diversity in our workplace to create organizational performance? Maybe reverse is gender. Maybe reverse is race. And maybe reverse is culture. Who could you chat with? Who could you share with? Who could be on your advisory board that's really going to open your eyes to the anti-racist movement that's on now, to Black Lives Matter? If you're going to another country, who could you truly reach out to talk about the value system in the UAE? Or if you're going to China, about the relationships and how cross-culturally, how we may need to do something different there. I know there's people on the call, I hope, that I thank you. I want to say thank you for that because I value you being on my advisory board to do that. But I challenge all of you to find someone in your organization or in your network strategically to help you think differently, to address your bias, and to help you grow your organization so that we are truly inclusive and diverse and be able to draw on the best skill sets of everyone in our organization.
And Susan, sorry, we have about maybe 1 or 2 minutes if you want to close.
It is a closing slide, Paul. Oh my goodness.
There you go. Beautiful.
Our task is to align our work, our thinking, our action, and our relationships so that when we're doing this, we're creating that synergy that makes the weaknesses irrelevant. That's Drucker, not Susan Murray. Susan Murray says, be in a state of constant reinvention and explore the impossible.
Cool. Susan, thank you. A lot of amazing things here. Couple things I want to remind the audience. First, if you've got questions, please type them into the Q&A section. Susan will be staying afterwards to answer any questions. So please take advantage of that. The second thing I just want to put forward to the audience, maybe you can do this in the chat. Susan mentioned so many powerful things here, and I hope, well, I know there was a number that was landing for me. Trust and having trust at the center of everything, of those relationships, and how important that is. Certainly having or rethinking the notion of an advisory board and not thinking about mentorship as a one-person relationship, and the degree to which you have that advisory board. And the third being this reimagining of a reverse mentoring, and really thinking about mentoring in a much different lens. And I'd like you to type into the chat what landed for you. Those were the three things that landed for me, but I would love to hear, and I know Susan would, what landed for you just as we close. And while that's coming through, if there's any Q&A, please type it into the Q&A box, not the chat, so we don't lose track of the Q&As. So let's see what comes out here in the chat. Relationships, reciprocal, credible advisory board. Great slides. Interdimensional mentoring instead of reverse. Yeah, that's massive.
I like that.
Strategic importance of a peer group. Absolutely. One of the things that's implied here too is, where do you get your knowledge? Isn't it?
Yeah,
you know,
what counts as knowledge? Yeah.
And who are the sources of this, and who are the sources of trusted knowledge, and mentorship being one of the ways. Yeah. Mentorship is not about one person. It's a group of people playing different roles. Susan, if there's anything you feel like commenting on in the last minute or so.
I'm here reading. So I love, Werner, thank you for the interdimensional mentoring, because I don't like the term reverse, and I didn't like what it implied. And so I said, no, I'm going to put it out there, because I think it's time to rethink that and really create those types of relationships on your advisory board. You know, really change it up a bit. It's time. Jan, great question about the training of new mentors. Certainly, I'll be like Paul, if you need a plug for that, if that's something that people are interested in, please reach out to me. It's there was so much that I could have done today, you know, in terms of the questions that we ask and how we engage in terms of questions and design in mentoring or advisory relationships. Expanding the mentoring pool, I would argue that by creating the knowledge within your organization, that we are all mentors, that we are all advisors, that we encourage and reward collaboration. I remember years ago, we'd have that mentoring pool. People were hesitant because they were taking on so much work. So if we're able to really spread the wealth and create those, the idea of reciprocity and collaboration amongst our organization, I think we'll have more people coming on board. Do I think we need some work on coaching and questioning? Most definitely.
Wonderful. Folks, I hate to do this, but Dr. Susan Murray will stay online if there's any direct Q&A that you want to do, but we're now at 1:15, which means time has flown by yet again. And actually our next presenter, Dr. Georgette Zanotti, is coming on board. I'm just going to put up her introductory screen, and we are going to change batons here, and we will get